Houston and St. Pete. It's win or go home for the Tampa Bay Rays in Game 5 of the ALDS. I'm Kate McVeigh in for Veronica Cintron. We're also tracking several big stories for you this hour. We have reaction from Marquise McLaughlin's loved ones. His killer was sentenced to 20 years in prison today. Family attorneys say Michael Drake's conviction has a much deeper meaning.
But it was also important for the spirit of Trayvon Martin and all the victims of Stand Your Ground murders.
And we're back in the Florida Panhandle, 1 year after mighty monster Hurricane Michael made landfall. Plus, a new safety feature for Hart bus drivers. We talked to operators who say they already feel safer. This is your news weather now. All right, first things first, this 5 o'clock hour, we have to get to that weather forecast. Let's go straight to Chief Meteorologist Mike Clay live in the Weather Center. Mike, what can people expect for their commute home today?
A couple little showers out there, Kate, but not very much. Basically a dry pattern coming in for us for the next couple of days. Cholesterol 9 shows those fast-moving little showers coming over from the Atlantic. What we expected today, if it does rain where you are, it won't last long. It may just be enough to get the sidewalk damp or turn on the windshield wiper a couple of times, and that's about it. Basically dry through the night and into tomorrow morning. And first thing in the morning, our northern counties will drop all the way into the mid-60s. More about our Friday and the weekend coming up, Kate.
All right, now on to our top story tonight. Game 5 of the American League Division Series. The Tampa Bay Rays will line up against the Houston Astros tonight. It has been a magical ride for the hometown team so far. We have team coverage tonight. We'll check in with our Lori Davison in St. Pete at a watch party in a little while. But let's start with Spectrum Sports 360's Mike Cairns. He is live at Minute Maid Park in Houston. Mike, it's do or die. So many of us here in the Bay Area, myself included, we are just itching for a Yankees-Rays matchup. Can they do it?
Of course we can do it, Kate. This has become old hat. They've already won 2 elimination games. Why can't they win a third and go on to New York on Saturday? It's that easy. Pre-game, couple hours away from first pitch. Give you an idea what's going on. If Randy could swing around, my great photographer. It's crowded down here. You see the guys, the good guys are all warmed up and getting ready to go in this single elimination game to face the Yankees in Game 1 on Saturday. Believe it or not, the Rays will be well represented. I actually spoke to a couple that just got done driving in from St. Pete. They got on the road at 4 o'clock this morning, so there's a small contingent of Rays fans here. But they won't be as loud as the Astro fans, but they will be cheering their Rays on. But the Rays, they're focused on what they have to do, and that's try to beat Garrett Cole. He struck out 16 in game number 2. This is a guy that could easily win the Cy Young Award. It's either between Verlander or Garrett Cole, and he's had a tremendous season. And earlier today, Kevin Cash talked about hopefully his guys, his lineup have a good game plan going up against Garrett Cole, and they took something away from game number 2. Here's Kevin Cash.
It's really easy for me to sit up here and say, get aggressive, don't go deep in counts with them, but that's much easier said than done. So you just hope that the guys took something from game 1, saw enough pitches from them that they can use that in their game plan here right out of the gate.
Get off. Well, it's certainly a tall game plan. There's no question of that. Garrett Cole has struck out 30 Rays in his last 2 starts against Tampa Bay, so they definitely know what they're up against tonight. But the game plan is going to be the same as it was against Verlander. Patience, try to get him out of there early and get to that Astros bullpen, which is exactly what the Rays have dominated here through the first 4 games. Underdogs, no more. It's down to 1 game, winner moving on to New York to face the Yankees. We are live in Minute Maid Park, hours away from first pitch. I'm Mike Aaron, Spectrum Sports 360. Kate, back to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Certainly nice to see some fans on the road there with the team. Now back home, our team coverage will continue throughout the night, including from a watch party in St. Petersburg. Developing right now in Pasco County, a construction worker was seriously injured in an accident in San Antonio. Fire rescue officials say that person was struck in the face, jaw, and chest with a saw. The worker was flown to the hospital as a trauma alert. We, of course, will bring you more details as soon as we get them. New reaction tonight to the latest development in a story that created headlines nationally. Michael Draka has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for killing Marquise McLaughlin. Spectrum Bay News 9's Dahlia Dangerfield was in court when that sentence came down. Dahlia, I listened in on that news conference with the family. They are pleased with this result.
They are pleased. They were looking for the maximum sentence of 30 years, but they did say that they were pleased with 20. You know, they spoke in court talking about everything that they lost, and then Michael Draka's wife actually wrote a letter to be shared in support of her husband, but it appeared that the judge had already made up his mind in what he called a very emotional case. Fingerprinted and sentenced to prison. More than a year after the deadly confrontation over a handicapped parking space.
I'm going to sentence you to 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
Michael Draka learned his fate.
No one really used perfect judgment in this case. Perhaps everyone could have done a little something a little bit different.
But the judge said Draka created the conflict that cost Marquise McLaughlin his life. And in court,
You deserve to die in prison.
McLaughlin's family says they'll never be the same.
I can't forgive Michael Draka. There's no forgiveness in my heart right now. It's not. My only son is gone. Michael Draka is still living. He's still breathing.
Draka chose not to say anything during the sentencing.
No, Your Honor.
His lawyer instead reading a letter from Draka's wife.
Michael is a kind, loving, caring, funny, supportive, hardworking man.
Afterwards, Draka's lawyers continued to say he was acting in self-defense.
We believe that his actions were totally justified and that we will prevail on appeal.
For Marquise McLaughlin's family, the 20-year sentence brings a bit of closure. Although with McLaughlin gone, they're still trying to heal.
He died trying to protect us, and it's all unfair still, but 20 years, I guess we have to accept that.
Now again, Draka was facing a maximum of 30 years in prison, so Draka's attorneys say they are pleasantly surprised and pleased that he got 20 years. Meanwhile, they do say that they plan to appeal, and they have 30 days to do just that. I'm live in Pinellas County, Dahlia Dangerfield, Spectrum Bay News 9.
All right, thank you, Dahlia. Now, lawyers for the McLaughlin case say they're hoping this case is historic, and they're hoping it sets a precedent against Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Now we move on to Hillsborough County, where deputies are searching for whoever shot 4 people in a mobile home park early this morning. 2 of those gunshot victims were killed. Spectrum Bay News 9's Josh Rojas is live at the crime scene with the latest. Josh, what can you tell us?
Hillsborough detectives have been here at the Carousel Mobile Home Park all day gathering evidence, trying to figure out who shot 4 people, killing 2 of them. Pop, 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 pop. Resident Rafael Martinez says he heard 5 to 6 shots ring out shortly after 1 a.m. Deputies say the shooter killed a man in the common area of the park and another man inside a mobile home. Deputies say a woman in her 60s is the only known resident of that mobile home. She was also shot along with a man in his 20s. Martinez says he lives right next door to that mobile home that was shot up. Does it make you nervous this happened?
Of course, my window was right there. I didn't even want to look out because of the sound. It was right there, so I didn't see anything, but I heard everything.
Martinez called the woman who was shot a sweet old lady and says he was surprised to learn there were several people in her mobile home when that shooting happened. Deputies say that woman and the man are expected to survive their injuries. Live in Hillsborough County, Josh Rojas, Spectrum Bay News 9.
All right, thank you, Josh. Detectives say the shooting appears to be targeted and the public is not at risk. The victims' identities will be released once their next of kin have been notified. Today marks 1 year since Hurricane Michael made landfall, devastating parts of Florida's Panhandle. Governor Ron DeSantis, as you heard earlier, addressed reporters in Bay County. Capitol reporter Troy Kinsey joins our team coverage. Troy, the governor announced a long-awaited recovery. Funding is finally coming to one of the hardest hit places in the state. What can you tell us?
be here all the time. I can be in Miami wherever.
Well, to a certain extent, Cait, I can tell you the announcement is going on as we speak, so I won't speak too loudly. The governor is at the podium right now, but he does say that about $2.5 million in job growth fund grants are on their way to the community here in Panama City to assist with rebuilding the housing infrastructure, certainly an area of concern as people begin to rebuild the area, generally speaking. This is money coming out of a brand new fund that is designed primarily for economic development. In this case, the governor says it's needed here in the Panhandle, where, of course, the rebuilding effort continues even after a year after Hurricane Michael hit. And the other piece of this big announcement today is that he is now proposing using BP oil spill settlement funding that was originally dispersed by that oil giant in the wake of the 2010 oil spill along the Panhandle. He's proposing using that to help communities across the entire Panhandle recover. But I have to tell you, Cait, a lot of people here are wondering where that big piece of the $19 billion federal disaster recovery package specifically earmarked for rebuilding after Hurricane Michael is. The package was passed back in June. A lot of folks here in Panama City here say they have yet to see any of that funding as it relates to the rebuilding effort here. So that's a big unanswered question, but the governor did seem to indicate today that funding is on its way. Keep in mind, he's a close ally of the Trump administration, has an inside line to the White House, and appeared to infer today, in the next couple of months, a lot of the areas that have been hardest hit by the hurricane and continue to struggle to rebuild will see that funding here in the Florida Panhandle. So for now, Cait, again, the announcement not nearly as big as a lot of people expected. We're only talking about several $1 million as compared to a potential multi-billion-dollar disbursement. The governor says every penny counts.
All right. Thank you, Troy. Now, let's go back to our weather on the 9's forecast. Chief Meteorologist Mike Clay is live in our weather center. Mike, it has been a year and those stories and images still incredible. I mean, it seems like in some of those areas, the storm just ripped through.
Go on Google and look at Google Maps and go into that area and look at, I was just looking at it. It's kind of depressing really, but it's fascinating to look at. You can see exactly the streets and what's left there and the damage that can happen with a storm surge of that magnitude. Let's see what's going on here now. It was a busy day 1 year ago.